The June 18th meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council will now come to order. I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to the start of each City Council meeting, we provide an opportunity for Eden Prairie residents to address the Council on issues related to Eden Prairie City government. Our Council meetings are held on the first and third Tuesdays of each month, typically, and the portion of time that's allocated for open podium is 6:30 to 6:55. If you wish to speak during that period of time, please contact the City Manager's office at 949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with your name, the subject matter you wish to discuss. If time permits, we do allow unscheduled speakers to address the Council. I'd just like to let you know that these portions of the meeting are not recorded or televised. And if you have any questions, please, again, contact the City Manager's office. We have two items under proclamations and presentations tonight. The first is a presentation from Tim Litvin with Tour de Tonka. Tim?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council members, staff, and community. Thanks for having me here today. And I'm going to talk to you about Tour de Tonka, a bike ride that comes right through parts of Eden Prairie, and it's coming up on the first Saturday in August, on Saturday, August 3rd. I've got a few slides from last year and again this year, and then there's a video at the end that'll give you a little bit more of a feel for it if you have not participated or volunteered in the past. Of course, we'd encourage you to do either, and we'll talk about that as well. And so we're ready to start, Lorene, and there it is. Thank you very much. There's a shot at the start from last year. She's so quick over there. Motorcycles lead and follow, and it's a very safe event. You'll see all kinds of riders of all abilities, and it's a ride, not a race. So that helps people understand it a little better. It's definitely not a race, but it is all areas, and all riders are allowed in. Pictures from last year, we had a wedding occur last year at Tour de Tonka, and so the couple in the center, they got married at Tour de Tonka last year, so that was kind of fun, and they were the first riders out of the chutes. And they had a blast, as did everybody else, helping to celebrate them. This shows a little bit about participation from last year. There were almost 2,800 riders, and we hope to exceed that this year, and everybody had a great time, even though the weather dipped a little bit in the morning with a couple of showers, but it came right back like a typical summer day can here in Minnesota. And it shows you there the age of the riders from last year as well. Demographics, everybody in the room, you guys all qualify. You can see it's a male-dominated event, but the women are catching steam, and the numbers are growing as well, so that's a good thing. For all of our riders. Our riders come from, quite frankly, across the state of Minnesota and beyond. Last year, you can see that almost every county was participating in some way, shape, or form in Tour de Tonka, so that's pretty cool. One rider told me at the end of the day last year that, hey, this is Minnesota's ride, so we've actually stolen that tagline. So whoever you are out there, thank you for that, and we're going to use that now going forward. We even had countries, multiple countries, and what's cool about the states involved is that in our first couple of years, people came and rode because they were here with Grandma or Uncle Ben or whatever. Now they're coming for the event, so that's a good thing for us and a good thing for you because we showcase Eden Prairie and all the communities we go through, and you can see all the good things that you have to offer here. We highlight, among many things, our legacy riders, and those are the people that have ridden every one of the years. And that number is 80, and that's a proud bunch of people, I can tell you that. Top 10 participating communities are listed right there, and you can see Eden Prairie stands strong at number 6, and I'm sure it'll grow and grow, just like all the other communities around you have been. And that you're consistent there. You dropped a little bit, 5 to 6, but maybe get a couple of participants here in the crowd tonight, and that'll boost you back up there. We keep track of a lot of data, and the top 40 communities we like to track as well, because when I go and talk to the other city councils, they want to know how many came and rode from my town, and we can show them that. The distances were in front of you from last year and how many people rode in each one of those distances. The 26-mile is the ride that comes through Eden Prairie. The others come close, but they don't get into Eden Prairie. So it's the 26 that comes right through parts of Eden Prairie. We raise money for, in one of the groups is the Food Shelf, and they're very happy with this event. It puts them on the map in many ways, and that's a good thing for them and a good thing for us. We also have a youth ride on another separate date miles of smiles, and we had lots of little kitties riding that ride, and that's kind of fun too. Volunteers are key in any event that anyone puts on today, and it's no different in Tour de Tonka. And last year, almost 500 volunteers were involved to make sure that we're safe, we're guided, we're protected. And we got a whole family involved there on the lower left, and a crazy dude in the middle that has fun every year at Tour de Tonka. And it's just a blast. And so if you're out there watching tonight and you want to volunteer or ride, just let us know. Eden Prairie Police, you guys know this. I don't need to tell you that, but I'll tell the community. They're fantastic. Officer Tom helps us a lot every year, and city staff open their arms to work with us. So I feel very proud about those groups that you have here in Eden Prairie. I know I sure enjoy working with them. The ride options that are this year, we've added one. We kept the other ones the same for the second year in a row, and then we've added a 51. It's one of those marquee numbers. If you don't want to ride 100 or whatever, you can say, I'll hit for 50. That's kind of a nice iconic number. There's kind of the big breadth of what Tour de Tonka does for the 100 milers. The blue is the 26 mile. That's the one that comes through Eden Prairie. And then the red goes in all parts above and beyond. And that little heartbeat up on top, that's going up to Delano on the top side. And then it goes all the way down and through Watertown, Mayor, Norwood, Young America, and scoots back up through Waconia, and eventually back over to Minnetonka High School. And the whole thing starts and stops at Minnetonka High School. Those are the communities we go through this year, or we're going to go through this year. Several, as you can see. And rest stops are everywhere, and they're plentiful. And the Lake Riley rest stop it's just like a king rest stop. The band that plays there loves to play there. The riders that go through, the volunteers that are there, they always say, can I go back there? It's a really nice spot to be at, and you know that. That's no secret. You got a beautiful park there, and I commend you for that. And sponsors, it's like volunteers. Nothing happens anywhere without volunteers and sponsors. Those are the sponsors for us this year, and they're great people to work with. T-shirt art, if you're volunteering or riding, you'll get a T-shirt with that cool artwork on there. And then I've got a video that'll describe a little bit more for you, and Lorene will start that up for us.
Welcome to the 2012 Tour de Tonka. We're glad you're here.
Prairie, been doing it for 5 years.
I've been watching the Tour de France all summer, and I thought this would be a cool way to get my cycling in.
We are legacy riders. Right here, and she's weather-born young. Are you ready to ride? I like it. Everybody have a great 2012 Tour de Tonka. We'll see you back here.
Year 1, 2006, we had 800 plus or minus riders, and now we're at 2,700 today in year 7. And it's not all about numbers. It's not just a number game. We want to have a number of riders that we can please and give a good experience to.
The ride today was awesome. The weather wasn't great, and it didn't matter. We just had a blast.
There are 10 communities that represent the Minnetonka School District, and all of them are part of Tour de Tonka, which is really cool, and beyond that. And this year we have 23 communities involved that we ride through.
That level of support, from the volunteers to the, like I said, the police, to the sheriffs, to the organizers, you name it. They do everything to make this as worry-free and as fun of a event as it possibly can for you, and they do it.
Well, they were really nice because there was a lot of food. And yeah, because everybody's just always happy to see you and cheering you on, and it's fun.
There's 400 of them in and around this event, making sure it's safe, it's protected, and it's happening.
It's kind of cool to see all the bikers, and there's so many people, but I like volunteering. It's kind of cool.
They got things under control, they got things really done well. At the intersections, it's safe. This is a great way to see the local area and get out as a family.
The scenery definitely keeps it interesting when you're riding around the lakes.
The last, especially the last 5-10 miles is really fun because it's like winding through neighborhoods, so there's a lot of turns and downhills and stuff.
Let's go! Going that way! Some work better than others. This one seems to be working. Right turn!
There's all kinds of riders today, and that's what's kind of fun about a ride like Tour de Tonka. It's not just for the geared up, hardcore guys and girls that want to ride 100 miles. It's all ages.
Anyone can do this. You can go as slow as you like, or you can speed by others. It doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah. And like they say at the start, it's not a race, and that's what makes it so much fun. It's just an event. You come out, you have a good time, you hang out with your friends, and you get to get a good ride at the same time.
We're growing at a nice pace. We can accept that growth, we can manage that growth, and we can continue to give our riders and our communities a good experience, because that's what it's all about.
Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit better of an idea of what the event's all about. It's like a couple of those kids said, anybody can do it. It's fun. There's music all over the place. There's great food at the beginning, at the end, and all throughout the middle of it. So it's well done, and we would welcome any of you to come. And again, volunteer or rider, let us know. Oh, I got to back up. Who knows what that kind of a bike is called? Anybody in the room?
It's not a unicycle.
That guy comes every year. He's one of the legacy riders. That's a penny farthing. And that is one unusual bike. How he gets on and off, we don't know. It's a secret. But I don't know if I want to do it. But it's a lot of fun. Please come if you're able. tourdetonka.org. Thank you very much for your time tonight. And thank you, Eden Prairie, for allowing the event to come through.
Thank you, Tim. And that was a great video. And it looks like a wonderful event. And obviously the increase in numbers is a good testimony to that. But watching that video just made me realize how complicated setting all of this up has to be. It must take hours and hours. Weeks and weeks and months.
It's a year-round project, and I've run Twin Cities Marathon almost every year of the last 20-some. It's like that. It's a major event, and when you work with all kinds of communities and bureaucracies, yours isn't one of them, thank you, it becomes an interesting project, but it's fun.
Well, it would be a lot easier if you didn't have to work with so many different cities, but then we wouldn't be part of the route. So thank you for working with the City of Eden Prairie, and I'm glad to hear that the police give you good cooperation and help you out a lot. Thank you. Good luck this year.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Rick Carter from ULI, the Urban Land Institute.
Do you have a clicker for me?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Rick Carter. I'm with LHB, and I'm here representing the ULI Minnesota Regional Council of Mayors Environment Committee. And I'm going to talk about the Regional Indicators Initiative, which is a project that you've been involved with. Thank you very much. And you'll know a lot more about it in about 15 minutes. Feel free to interrupt me and ask any questions. Let's see, will I be able to see them? Okay. So what I'm going to do is explain what the project is, and I'm going to talk to you about kind of how it got started, show you a little bit of the results, just enough to wet your whistle, and then I've got some data that I will kind of compare to yours. I've done this now for about 18 cities, so they're not customized to each city, but I have all your results right in front of me. So basically, it started out as an attempt to come up with a set of measurable outcomes for cities who are doing green step cities. So I tell people green step cities is kind of like LEED, if you hear about LEED for buildings. Green step cities is a way for cities to establish strategies and best practices and try and make an environmental difference. And the regional indicators is a way to measure that. So we started out with 3 communities, Edina, Falcon Heights, and St. Louis Park, where we initially were really just trying to figure out what can you measure in an entire city with some regularity that you can compare. So we started out with an effort to collect waste, water, energy, and travel. And we were successful doing that for the first 3 cities, so we've expanded it. So now we have 4 years of data in those categories for 20 cities. And we've spent a fair amount of time. There's a consultant team, people from ULI Minnesota, evaluating the data. Some of the bullet points on this slide talk about other things that we're trying to do. One of them is to communicate the information. Everything that I show you today and more will be on a website, which we'll probably be launching just in the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to do some more data collection, and I'll talk about that at the end. So this is a map that shows our metro region. The Regional Council of Mayors cities are in gray unless they've opted into this program. So the darker reddish, orange, brown colors are the 20 cities. We have Duluth, Rochester, and 18 metro cities. And we've categorized the cities into urban first ring suburbs and outer ring suburbs to be able to do some comparisons. And this is what we've collected. So we've collected energy, and this is where I'll just stop and make sure you understand. This is total energy for the entire city. So not your city's energy use in your buildings or the transportation of your fleet. It's all the energy that we collect from the utility companies and district energy for the entire city for an entire year. We convert all that to BTUs, which just simply means instead of comparing apples and oranges like therms and kilowatts, we can compare them to one another. Then we have water in gallons, which is pretty straightforward, travel in miles, and waste in pounds. We also convert everything into greenhouse gas emissions and dollars, so people can make comparisons that way as well.
So a quick question on the
Absolutely.
energy component of it. So you're collecting details or data on the total number of BTUs used. Does that take into account residential versus commercial at all, or you're just, because we have a lot of businesses in Eden Prairie,
absolutely
so
does.
how do you factor that?
We didn't actually know that we would be able to do this, but in the first set of 3 cities, the first information we got back from the first utility company came separated between residential and commercial industrial. So all of the energy data and all of the water data for all 20 cities for all 4 years is separated that way. And you'll see some of the ways that we've compared it. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So now I'm going to talk about some trends, and I can't say they were expected or unexpected because we didn't even know we could really do this. We didn't know exactly what we were going to get. But some of the trends are pretty regular throughout the 20 cities. This curve that shows a number, and I can't quite read it. This is total energy use for all 20 cities divided by population. I should have mentioned too, we have population, we have weather data, we have household and job data, so we can normalize this information. So in almost every single case, the energy consumption, however we looked at it, went down from 2008 to 9, and again from 2009 to 10, and then back up in 11. We're not quite sure what that means or exactly why. It makes us want to get 2012 data and see what the next step is, but it's pretty regular, and here's just a diagrammatic view. So this is total energy use, not normalized, just the total number of BTUs for all 20 cities, and then you see that pattern graph for each of the 20 cities. So without having to study it, I can tell you unequivocally, 2010 is less than 2008 in all 20 cases, and 11 is greater than 10 in all 20 cases. This is weather normalized. Someone always asks me if you can weather normalize. We use maybe a somewhat of a crude method. It's just counting heating degree days and cooling degree days. So it's a BTU per heating degree day. So it basically takes out weather as a factor, and you see a similar trend with slightly different variations. And this happens to be that same trend on a per capita basis and by utility type. A trend that some cities find surprising is that over the course of these 20 cities, 60% of that energy use, this is non-transportation energy, is commercial industrial use, while 40% is residential. And that holds true for every single city is more than half commercial industrial, which surprises some cities without a lot of industry and commercial. Water, we don't see as many trends. Most people are just kind of amazed at how much water we use. You know, on average, we use a little over 100 gallons per person per day. That's total water use. Now, we have it disaggregated again, and you'll see some of those numbers. No real strong trends, a general decline in use, but it's pretty slight. The exact opposite of energy, same cities, same population, same time period. 42% of the water use is commercial industrial, and 58% is residential. VMT, for people who are familiar with the way this is done, this is what is called a geographic method. So fair or unfair, it's the number of miles that occur in your city. Whether someone lives in your city, passed through your city, started in your city, it's the number of miles in your city. Again, no real marked trend, a general decline, but it's relatively flat at about 26 miles per person per day. And that's pretty close to the national average. But when you look at the trends across the cities, it's interesting, maybe not surprising, that it's less than 20 in the central cities and more than 30 in the aggregation of the outer ring cities. Waste, I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on waste. We don't really actually have waste by city. We included it for the greenhouse gas emissions. We measure waste in Minnesota by county. Some cities have some portions of data, but not enough to go across the entire set. And then greenhouse gas emissions, generally speaking, follow the pattern of the BTUs, mostly because that's the biggest part of the pie, and I'll show you that in a minute, and also because the VMT is relatively flat. So here, this is using a national protocol called ICLEI, which is the national standard, taking everything we could measure, converting it to greenhouse gas emissions. So you see that I think it's 69% is attributed to non-transportation energy, the BTUs, maybe a little less than 30 or 25 on VMT, and then a handful of smaller factors like wastewater, waste, and airline travel. One of the things that we would like to do eventually is try and allow cities to use this information to establish sort of business as usual projections. What would happen to these numbers if we don't intervene in any way? And then if we are doing something like Green Step Cities and we want to reduce, what kind of targeted reduction could we expect to see, and then track them over time? Because most of these types of projections are done off of a 1-year benchmark. And now we have 4, maybe 5, 6, 7. So doing that both in terms of the total numbers and the per person or per job amount allows us to look at it through a different lens and would change the targets. So I'm not going to be able to read these slides. I will just tell you what they are, and we'll have a website available to you shortly. But generally speaking, when you have data, you can compare it in a lot of different ways. So this is a perfect example. This is the total energy in BTUs for 1 year across the 20 cities. So that doesn't really mean a lot. So really big cities use a lot of energy, and really small cities don't use a lot of energy. But now, what if we look at it in terms of total energy per capita per day? So there's a lot going on this slide. The upper part of the bars are the commercial industrial energy per capita, and the lower part is residential per capita. And we're not going to do a lot of comparing back and forth, but you could. So whether it's a friendly competition or just trying to track over time. I always tell people this information, whether you're measuring it for a building or a city, it's much more valuable for you to use to compare to yourself over time. But everybody wants to compare to everybody else. And that's okay if it's used wisely. Here is residential energy in kBTU per household per day. You can see you're generally about the 4th one from the right. And again, here's a lot of information going on. Water on the top, energy on the bottom, residential on the top of water, and commercial industrial on the bottom. What I tell people is if you really do want to focus on a comparison across 20 cities, what I wouldn't do is say, gee, why are we so high, or maybe why are we so low? What I would say is, if there's somebody who's being successful, what are they doing differently? What are they doing? What are the strategies they're doing for Green Step Cities? This is travel. I think we saw that in a different form before. This is the way that I would generally look at it. And again, I have the numbers in front of me. This particular one is total energy in kBTUs per capita per day. So for the city of Eden Prairie, and I'm not going to do this a lot, but for this particular number, Eden Prairie's numbers from 2008 to 2011 are 292, 282, 276, and 283. So that's the total amount of energy used in the city per person. We also have it residential per person, residential per household. What we're trying to do is find the one that kind of makes sense. What's the miles per gallon of energy use in a city, so that you can track it and see if you make a difference. Same with water. Water is generally done per person per day. Generally speaking, like I said, we're seeing numbers of total water use in the 100 to 150. I think I had it up a little while ago. Residential water use per person in this data set ranges from 34 at the low end to over 100 at the high end. So that's something kind of surprising. The energy use isn't nearly that spread out. So how does one city use that much more or less than another? And we don't know the answers. It's just for the first time we have the data. Mm-hmm. Same with travel, you compare over time. Part of it is, if you're using this information as a city, whether you're communicating, establishing policy, creating regulations, what is it you can actually do something about? And picking those numbers. Greenhouse gas emissions. And now I'm getting to where I'm going to wrap up. Basically, what we're also trying to do is equate the metrics to the strategies. So these just happen to be the Green Step City strategies grouped based on where we think a strategy, if implemented, would change one of the numbers we're measuring. So we're trying to hone in on it for each city. What we've determined is we can measure this. We didn't really know we could measure it. We're actually able to separate it between commercial and industrial. The energy, the non-transportation energy, is the biggest part of the carbon pie. Commercial industrial is bigger in energy, residential is bigger in water. And we're seeing this interesting trend of down, 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 up that translates into greenhouse gas emissions. So where we're going next is we have some additional funding, and I should have mentioned in the beginning, you all contributed to be a part of this. I appreciate that very much. We also had funding from the Department of Commerce and the MPCA. And we have some additional funding, and we're inviting the original 20 cities to do another year, and we're asking 20 more cities, with the theory that at some point this thing either becomes such a good idea it just starts to happen, like miles per gallon on cars. It doesn't have to be required or paid for or incentivized. So we think that the next 2 years will be very telling in that way. I think I'll stop. Those are all of the cities, and those are all of our partners. And I will specifically say that the utility companies have been very gracious. They've provided a lot of information, spent a lot of time with no remuneration. So we appreciate that. So that's it. What kind of questions can I answer for you?
Any questions for Rick? How are you going to contact us when the website is available and we can start looking through that data?
I'll be sending out an email this week to all the cities with the link for just you all to see and the funders. And then probably a week or so later, it'll go live, and I'll notify you then too. So it'll be an email to Jackie.
Okay. And then once cities start looking at this data and monitoring their own progress, looking at themselves in comparison with others, is ULI going to catalyze some opportunities for cities to talk and see what other people are doing to keep their energy use down?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, the sort of intertwining opportunities here are, the Met Council has a new goal this year on climate change for the first time ever. So that's an opportunity to be able to weave this data in. Green Step Cities is looking for a path towards measurement. ULI Minnesota has been the catalyst, so I think we'll stay involved. I'm just not sure how far we'll carry it. So I'm confident that'll happen, and it'll probably be the Regional Council of Mayors that's kind of the starting point for all this, and that's where we're targeting for most of the additional 20 cities. So if you have any ideas, just, I'm usually at the Regional Council of Mayors, so keep me posted.
I see you there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right.
Staff,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda and other items of business?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to add? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes for the council workshop, which was held on Tuesday, June 4th?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to correct there? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I'd like a motion for approval of the minutes for the city council meeting held on that same date, June 4th.
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections to those? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Now we come to our consent calendar, which is a list of items that we don't normally discuss. I understand that clerk's license, we have some discussion tonight, so we're going to pull that out and put it under item 12, petitions, requests, and communications for discussion. So I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar minus item A.
Move approval of items B through L.
Second.
Any other items to pull for discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to question? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aho.
Aye.
Councilmember Butcher-Wickstrom.
Aye.
Mayor Tara Lukens.
Aye. Thank you. Well, no public hearings today, so that brings us right to item 12, which is petitions, requests, and communications. Mr. Getchell, do you want to address this?
Sure, I could do that, Mayor. So your clerk's license list had one item. It was a recommendation for approval of a kennel license on Summerhill Drive. The licenses are applied for and approved through our police department, and maybe as a bit of background, we have probably anywhere from 10 to 15 of these licenses active in the city of Eden Prairie, and they must be applied for and renewed each calendar year. In the case of this private kennel license, there was a letter received, or some neighbors that have been talking to the police department regarding their concerns with one of the license at this address, and I believe we're asking to come to open podium. But since this is an item on the agenda, it would be handled in the course of business at the meeting. As a bit of background, the city's recommending approval of the kennel license, and in this circumstance, you would need a private kennel license if you were to have a third or fourth dog or cat. Then when you move beyond that 5 or more, you enter into commercial kennel license territory. In private kennel licenses, it's usually the scenario of 3 dogs in a residential neighborhood at a homestead. You have a goldenrod sheet at your table that describes how the police department inspected the property, interviewed the homeowners, understand that there's a fence on the property, and talked about the different methods in which the homeowner would have control over the dogs as well as control over the property. And in doing a background check previously, there was only one call to the residents, and it was related to a found dog, a different dog, on that property. I think in the letter that's attached, another homeowner brings up concerns that were unreported or called in, but I believe that that was in the letter that came to the city council within the last day or two. So this is not a public hearing, Mayor, but we thought that we would, if the homeowner or anyone else in the neighborhood wanted to express any thoughts or concerns on the license, they could do so here, and then the council could take action on the kennel license.
Thank you. Mr. Getchell, can I ask a question on the letter? When was the letter received? There's not a date on it. Do you recall? Was it like last week?
I'm not in terms of when I received it or the city council, I believe it would have been yesterday.
Okay. And on the second page, second paragraph, there's a sentence that says, I requested a conversation to explain my concerns prior to writing this letter, and my request is not accommodated. Was that by the police department, or was that by the Dudley family? Do you know?
It's my understanding that both parties would have been in contact with the police department, so I'm not sure what that means, but
okay.
That could be.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. All right. So this isn't a public hearing typically, but we do want to hear some of the concerns of the neighbors on this issue. So if you are interested in speaking, would you raise your hand? And it can be on either side of the issue. Okay, it looks like we have 3 people as far as I see. I mean, if you decide to speak, if more decide to speak later, that's fine. Who wants to go first? Okay. Yeah, let's try to limit your comments to about 3 minutes, if possible, please. Why don't you come up first and speak? Thank you.
Thanks for hearing my concerns. My name is Gary Schumacher. I live at 15111 Summerhill Drive. I was the author of the letter that you referenced. In reference to your question, Mayor, I attempted to address my concerns with my neighbors prior to coming here. I would prefer not to speak in public. That's just not my style. But anyway, I outlined most of my concerns in the letter. There were several occurrences where the dogs charged me. They didn't attack me. They stopped short of me, but it was a very scary event. I asked myself several times, what if that would have been my daughter? What if they wouldn't have stopped? I have a daughter who is now 5 years old. I'm expecting another one in October. And with dogs of this nature, I think anybody needs to ask themselves what they would do in this situation. Because the dogs that we're discussing here are pit bulls, all 3 of them, and they're rescue dogs as well. So far, they seem friendly, good-natured for the most part, but with these occurrences that have occurred, I'm nervous that it could be more. It could lead to an attack. If you do a internet search, there's instances over the past few years where several children have died, and so it's really, that's my concern. If the kennel license is approved, I would ask that maybe some extra safety measures be taken to prevent any danger or harm to my children or anybody else for that matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, please. If you could give your name and address for the record, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Melissa Dunkley. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. Again, I'm not a big public speaker as well. I live at 15121 Summerhill Drive. I am the person applying for the private kennel license. When I had the paperwork from the city and the police department, I went to Mr. Schumacher to ask him to sign it, and it was I did inform him it was simply acknowledging that I was notifying him I was applying for the kennel license. It was not for, like his acceptance of anything. He did say he had concerns, and that he wanted to speak, one-on-one with me and my husband. My husband is incredibly busy. He is not here tonight to support me because he is out of town. And we felt that it should maybe go through the proper channels so that it did not turn into a he said, she said sort of situation. I apologize to Mr. Schumacher for not conveying that to him, I guess, properly. But so that's addressing that, why we did not do a one-on-one.
Okay.
As far as the dogs charging, I wouldn't call it charging. They are excited to see a friend, someone that they know, and they're running up to greet. Yes, they are pit bulls, and yes, they are excitable. They are part of the terrier family. So if you're familiar with terriers, they're kind of high energy dogs. I do try to walk them every day. If the weather's not cooperating, I do own a treadmill specifically for them to be exercised on. So I do try to keep their energy level down. I would like to express that they are all licensed with the city. Their tags are on their collars. They're all 3 market tripped. They are properly vetted, current on all their vaccinations. They get their heart guard and flea and tick control medication monthly. They're all 3 spayed and neutered. They are all 3 AKC approved canine good citizens, and I do have copies of their tests. And if you're not familiar with the Canine Good Citizen program, it's a 2-part program that stresses responsible pet ownership and basic good manners for the dogs. They have to pass a 10-step test that is administered by an AKC approved trainer. The test is listed on the back of, or on the paperwork that I do have. Again, I'm just trying to be a responsible dog owner. I've come and applied for this license willingly. I'm not trying to hide anything. Again, I know they are pit bulls and it is scary, but I do volunteer with the rescue group that we got all 3 through. I participate with their dog safety program, so I am familiar with dog safety. As far as addressing Mr. Schumacher's concerns, we will be much more diligent on keeping them fenced or leashed. I know that they do not have to be leashed on my property, but when they do see a friend, sometimes it is hard to be like, no, you can't go past this line of the property. So we will be much more diligent on keeping them leashed when we are outside of and it is a border fence, so it's only 3 feet tall, but it is more than adequate as a visual boundary for our dogs. And okay, are there any other questions I can answer for you?
Council? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And it came from the police report. It talks about this fence. Is a fence in the front yard and backyard and side yard?
No, ma'am. It is strictly enclosing the backyard.
Okay.
And we do have weird property lines in our neighborhood. We have a 0-lot property line. So my property goes within 6 inches of Mr. Schumacher's house. I did consult with him before putting the fencing up and asked him if it was okay to put it as close to his house as possible so that we did not have, 6-inch gap. He advised me it was fine as long as it was not touching his house. It is not touching his house, and it is on our property.
And then what about the issue of shock collars? Do you have an invisible fence now?
No, we do not have an invisible fence. It's manually controlled.
Oh, so if you see the dog going someplace, you have to hit a button?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's mainly used to bring their attention back to me.
Okay.
So that they, if they do see a friend and like they're running across the street, it's, and the collar, it's a training collar. I wouldn't call it a shock collar. It does more than just shock. We use the vibrate mode quite a bit to vibrate them to get their attention back to us.
Okay.
They are very well trained. They've been through several training classes with the canine coach, as well as Arada Love Plus. That's the rescue group. Offers free training for all alumni. So we do continual training. And like I said, I volunteer with them. We take the various dogs to different events and stuff for them.
Okay. Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
I do.
Councilmember Butcher.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of sort this out in my mind because it seems that the reason that we're talking about this tonight is because of the breed and not necessarily the number.
Correct.
So one thing I wanted to ask about is, are there any behaviors that we should know about? I mean, so I'd appreciate being forthright about that. Do the dogs get out, for example, and you have to, I read a couple of places where they ran up to a stroller, and so are they contained in your yard?
Yes, ma'am. Dogs do get out. They do get away from you. I can count number of dog owners in our neighborhood whose dogs get away from them every once in a while. But my dogs are very friendly. They're very socialized. They are not aggressive. They would not be canine good citizens if they displayed any ill temperament.
And then you usually let them out in the back.
Yes, ma'am.
Where the fence is.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Just one question: do they jump the fence? A 3-foot fence is not very high. Do they ever jump over the fence?
2 of them would be unable to jump, would be my guesstimation, and the third, she's too smart to try because she knows she would be in trouble. But it's a visual boundary. They've sniffed the whole boundary. They are fine with it. They run. When Officer Peters and Sergeant Sackett were out Thursday, they witnessed them in the yard playing, running. It never came close to the fence.
Okay.
And when they are outside, either my husband or myself or an appointed guardian is outside with them. They're never outside unattended.
Okay. Thank you. I think there was somebody else that wanted to speak too.
Wipe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Michelle Klatt. She is with Arada Love. She's on the board of directors. She's the director of development. She's here to speak probably more for the breed specific.
Okay. Try to limit to like 3 minutes.
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to see if you had any questions. I know you had mentioned that this was more about the breed, and we want, the rescue as a whole wants to make sure that this is it does not become a pit bull issue, that it's about their application. We do thoroughly eval each of our dogs before we pull them from a shelter or animal control. They stay in our program for 1 month. Each of our dogs goes through mandatory training before they are adopted out. We do background checks on all of our adopters. We understand that adopting a pit bull, there is a standard that's out there. It's higher than any other breed, unfortunately, because of the media hype, because of what you find on the internet. Pit bulls are just like any other dogs. They don't have locking jaws. There's a whole lot of myths about them. They don't attack babies. Dogs bite. Pit bulls sometimes bite. So do golden retrievers. The ones that make the news are going to be the pit bulls. So when he did his internet search, he pulled those up, but that doesn't mean that pit bulls are inherently more dangerous. These dogs have been through multiple trainings. We offer free trainings for our fosters, for our adopters. They've all earned their Canine Good Citizen test. They passed their home visit. They passed their background test. Mike and Melissa passed their background application. They are responsible. They have not had any complaints. I guess I would like to ask the neighbor, if he was so concerned about the safety of himself or his daughter, then why did he not address it by filing a complaint with the city before this came up? Dogs of this nature, that was concerning to me when he brought that up. They are dogs. They are not dogs of this nature. They are rescue dogs. That is correct. I would guess that some of you on this council also have rescue dogs, and you would not like that to be a negative connotation on your dog. And extra safety measures, I guess I don't see that necessarily, and I would hope that that would not happen, that whatever you decide for Mike and Melissa would be the same as you would decide yesterday for whoever applied before, and tomorrow who for the next application that might come in. Are there any specific questions about the breed of dogs?
Questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Madsen. I live at 15120 Summerhill Drive. I live directly across the street from Mike and Melissa. And I'm here tonight because I have 2 small children. I have a daughter who's Annabelle. She just turned 8. And I have a son, Ben, who just turned 3. When they first got Dixie, the pit bull, I had a sense of worry, like anybody else with the media. I'd heard the media, and I'd seen it, and the newspapers, everything. And as a mother and as a responsible parent, that's what Mr. Schumacher is trying to do too, is just speak on behalf of our children and for their safety. I did extensive research, because that's what I do. I research. I read both sides. I knew that all dogs need responsible owners. And once I met Dixie, she was immediately affectionate. So I introduced her to my daughter. My son wasn't born at the time. I introduced her to my daughter, and they had this fantastic bond. I'm with my daughter as any responsible parent should be. I'm with my daughter or my son around any dog, whether it's the Labradoodle down the street or the Schnauzer next door. I'm with them. You can't leave your children alone with dogs. That's just the way it is. Annabelle and Dixie had this little fun game. Annabelle would hide and play hide and seek where I could see her, and we'd hold on to Dixie, and she'd go run and find them, and my daughter would shriek with delight because Dixie had found her, and they'd come running back, and we'd do it all over again. And at one point, my daughter began ringing the doorbell to ask if Dixie could come out and play. They're very gentle. Tank came along. I love the name Tank. Tank came along, and he gives you a cursory hello lick, and then he moves on to sniffing out chipmunks. He doesn't really care. But my son, on the other hand, demands that he lay back, is what he says. Can I lay back so Tank can lick his ears? Because he thinks it's funny and it tickles. Junie came along, and the very first meeting, she came over and plopped right over in between my daughter's legs and got a big, long scratching. All the while, I'm with them, and that's the key, is that as a parent, you have to be responsible and be with your children when they're with dogs. And Mike and Melissa, I know of no other pet owners that are as responsible as they are. I don't, honestly. And just as a side note, even in our neighborhood, talking about this particular dog, of this nature of the dog that he speaks of, the Scotty next door bit the neighbor girl. The Bichon Frise next door to them bit the clarinet teacher that stopped by. The Labrador next door to them charged the road every time I walked by. They had invisible fencing, but charged the road. And it was not fun to walk by. The terrier next door, well, actually, who lives in that very same house now, tried to bite me and my daughter. And there are 2 black labs that live on the corner who, when you walk by them, their hackles go up and they growl. I have had absolutely no instances like this with the Dudley crew, and we're very comfortable with them. And if you think about it, in the 70s, every movie that you saw, the German Shepherds were the bad dog. In the 80s, it was the Doberman Pinschers. They were the protective dogs. And in the 90s, it was the Rottweilers. And now the focus, the media, is on pit bulls. So maybe they'll get, in the next decade, they'll get their chance to get off that list of being bad in the media. So I just want to say that as our family, we have had just an extremely positive experience with them, and we'll continue to support the Dudleys as they continue to grow up good dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Situations like this are always hard to deal with because you can sympathize very readily with both sides of the equation here. And I think we kind of find ourselves on the council here as kind of in a role of being Judge Judy up here, trying to figure out, how these people should behave and whether or not they should have that extra dog in their kennel or not. And it's not a real comfortable situation because you're dealing with people that have feelings and that have affection for pets and care very deeply about their children's safety. So it's a difficult situation. Just wanted to bring up to the council that Mr. Getchell looked into this, and one option to consider is that we can grant the kennel license. The kennel license have to be renewed every year. Kennel licenses only last for a year maximum. So every kennel license is renewed in January. So we do have the option of approving this and then evaluating it, seeing if there are any problems or issues that arise between now and the first meeting in January when we'd approve the next batch of kennel licenses. So, Councilmember Butcher.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate you all coming forward, and I can tell you're all very caring individuals, loving of your families and wanting to protect. And the thing that is so difficult is that it's issues like this that cause friction in neighborhoods. So I hope you can figure this out. I know your neighborhood, and you always have a great picnic there in the summertime. You know that? Yeah, and so anyway, I've attended that a number of times. So I just am hoping everything can work out. The other thing that I do think is, from what I've heard, I have to say that Mr. and Mrs. Dudley do appear to have gone through the appropriate steps to ensure that they are responsible dog owners. And so personally, I would like to move to approve the licenses. And I'm not sure about the 1 year thing, to be honest with you, because if we don't ask other kennel owners to do that, or do we?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Then if that's the standard,
all reevaluated.
then I'm good to go with that. So I move to approve the licenses listed below with the 1 year evaluation.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
When's the potluck? When is the... It's
40th year.
Wow, what day is it? Okay.
Okay.
I just think it's important that we treat everyone equally, and I think, given this situation, I think we are treating everyone equally. So
Yeah, and given the fact that I don't have pets, but I know the people that have pets love their pets, and I think that the Dudleys will be darn sure that this additional pet does not cause problems for the neighborhood, because they would not want to risk not getting the kennel license in January and having to get somebody to adopt that third pet. So, okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for coming out here tonight and presenting your views. I appreciate it. Reports of the Park and Rec Director, Mr. Lotthammer.
Your Honor, council members, we place this item under my report to give you some background and information about the project, and it really goes back over 10 years of discussion, and just a little bit of history on that. And when Baseball Association was growing, and as kids were moving through the program, we began to hear a lot of concern of not enough bigger fields, the 90-foot base path fields. And so that was one of the things that we've been trying to do in the park system, is kind of recorrect that and get the right balance of size fields. And then the other thing that happened about 10 years ago as well is the technology in softball and bats and people's capabilities really have outpaced what field sizes had been built 25 or 20 or 15 years ago. And so this project is really predicated on many of the projects that came before. We usually talk about it internally as the domino effect of how these things all come together. And so just to kind of walk you down the road, literally, if you start at the Cummins Grill House at Starring Lake, the two ball fields there, and go back when the road project happened, before that, both baseball, youth baseball, and adult softball were played on that location. And now it's been converted so it's appropriate for youth baseball, the appropriate size for them. Coming down Pioneer Trail a little bit more, the two new baseball fields at the Flying Cloud expansion. One of the things that allows to happen is this project where the Riley fields that are being shared by the youth and the adults, this would extend those fields so that they're more appropriate to be used by the adults. What that ends up helping us be able to do is when we get to that second phase at Round Lake and take out, instead of having 4 fields that are short distance, really too short to play adult softball on, we end up with 3 fields there. And those fields become longer. They become renovated, which they're over 25 years old at this point, and so some of the irrigation is failing. But it also gets us out of the scenario at Round Lake where we have more things than what it will really park. And so I think addressing that issue is important. So all of these things have kind of been staggered in a way that has allowed, for the most part, as seamless of transitions between the construction and the use of the projects. What this does include, though, is if you look at going back to Lake Riley, we have a tennis court, volleyball court, and basketball court. What we've done with the tennis court, actually we're about 3 weeks away from doing it, is restriping it so that pickleball can also be played there. And that's due to the expansion that I know all of us and all council members have heard about as well. And so what that'll look like at Riley is identical to what the courts look like at Pioneer Trail. Can be used for both tennis and both pickleball. But the key there is this would be the first lighted tennis pickleball court in the city. Right now, we don't have any tennis courts, public tennis courts that are lit. And that's a big advantage to tennis players, especially for those who have played in the past. Usually at night, it's a time when there's not as much wind. It's a little bit better temperature. So it can help accommodate, especially in that spring and fall season where you can play till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The adult volleyball program, a great benefit to them in the fall especially to be able to play under the lights. And as well, adult softball, that double header is what's very popular. And people, instead of in the past where a lot of people were playing a couple nights a week, they'd prefer to play two games on the same night and really make the most of that night when they might have a babysitter or have arranged to be off from work. So we've seen the popularity of that really take off. So specifically what this project does, it lengthens the 2 fields that are there to be appropriate for adults. It makes those fields lit. It also at the same time lights the tennis, pickleball, volleyball, basketball courts. And we're using, and just like we did at the baseball field at Round Lake, Musco is the lighting firm, and they are some of the top, they are the top in the industry, we believe, in terms of the effectiveness of lighting. Where lighting has come in the last 5 years is incredible in terms of its ability to not have the spill or the overcast that it had in the past. The energy efficiency of what we're using today compared to even 5 years ago is totally different. And we've also got a system through Musco where we're controlling it using satellite communication where we can schedule it, we can turn it on, we can turn it off when we want to. We would model the tennis court after one that I've had experience with building and lighting in the past where if nobody's using it, it goes off. and then there's a button and a low light, and then the button, and you hit the button and it comes back on, so that we're not turning it on just waiting for somebody to be there. It's on an on-demand system. So we did go out for bid on this project, and you'll actually see the second item is for the construction management portion of that, construction observation. But with this one, we did receive 3 bids. The engineer's estimate was $707. We came in with our low bid at $699, a range of up to $820. So looking at those dollars and how the other bids came back in, we would recommend moving forward with New Look Contracting to complete this project. We would undertake it this year. It doesn't have a total disruption to the field, so it's not a full regrading. So we believe that it has the opportunity to get back online fairly early next year, which then lets us start to move forward with the planning and the reconfiguration of Round Lake another year later. And both of those items are included in our CIP. This one, as well as the other projects, would use our park dedication funds or cash park fees in order to fund the project. And we've typically done that with anything that's either new or an upgrade to what's already in place. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to award the contract for Riley Lake Park improvements to New Look Contracting in the amount of $699,812.50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Mr. Lotthammer, you have another item?
Yeah, this was the one I referred to, where this is for the professional services agreement to do construction observation and inspection of that project using HTPO, which was also the company that did the design for the project. So we would feel very comfortable using them to carry the project through.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lotthammer? Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve professional services agreement with HTPO for the Riley Lake Park Improvements Project for construction administration services at a cost not to exceed $53,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A report of the Public Works Director on the feasibility study for Eden Prairie Road. Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Council. On the June 4th City Council workshop, if you recall, we discussed Eden Prairie Road at length, and both, really I think the focus was the north segment, but also finished the discussion about connecting to Flying Cloud Drive. And we are actually ready to move forward with the feasibility study for that. And what the feasibility study would allow us to do is begin the design. It would start scoping out the project. It would look at how that connection would be made. Also start looking at what the estimated cost of construction would be, and then how to assign the assessment to the benefiting properties. And so what I heard at that City Council workshop is, yes, one, the council does want to see that connection made, but they want to take a look at it and make sure that it's sensitive to the environment, to costs, and also to the adjacent property owners. So we heard you loud and clear, and as we move forward with design, we will take those into consideration and find the best solution for not only the entire city, but the people that will be impacted most with the project. So with your approval tonight, feasibility study will begin that process, and the final thing that we heard is that we'd like to see this possibly coordinated with the Flying Cloud Drive reconstruction project, which is planned for 2015. So I think we can meet that schedule if we begin design early this year and get started and have that public input process. So with your approval tonight, we will get started with that project, and in the end, we will have a nice brand new Eden Prairie Road connecting Spring Road to Flying Cloud Drive.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ellis? Okay, is there a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the preparation of a feasibility report for street and utility improvements to serve the area adjacent to Eden Prairie Road from approximately Frederick Place to Cassaw 61 Flying Cloud Drive.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Next item for business is a report from the Eden Prairie Fire Relief Association on bylaw changes.
Mayor, I can kick this off, and we do have someone to present here as well. You may recall Councilmember Case, who serves on the Fire Relief Board, as a city council member, provided an update at the last meeting on some activities of the Fire Relief Association and some upcoming potential changes to the bylaws, which are before you tonight. And so since that time, the Board of Trustees of the Eden Prairie Fire Relief Association and the general membership of the entire association have considered and approved these bylaws. And so we have tonight with us the Assistant Chief Ward Parker, but also the President of the association, Aaron Casper, to provide an overview. And our Finance Manager, Suka Cheever, also serves on that board as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members and city staff. Thank you, Rick, for that introduction. My name is Aaron Casper. I currently serve and represent active, deferred, and retired members for the Eden Prairie Fire Department in the capacity of president of the Relief Association. To Rick's point, what we're here asking the council to do is pass the resolution that is before you to approve the three recent bylaw changes that we've not only approved as a Board of Trustees, but also as a general membership group at our last Thursday business meeting on June 13th. So what I'd like to do, and I know this was included in your packet for tonight's meeting, is just run through the three specific bylaw changes that we're asking you to approve. The first bylaw change has to do with changing the current multiplier for receiving a lump sum payout versus a defined monthly benefit payout. Historically, our membership has not elected to select the lump sum payout. And as a Board of Trustees group, we're really trying to take a look, certainly by keeping the options available to our membership, as we still do, but we really want to incent more members to strongly consider the lump sum option. And by doing so, as part of the illustration, I'll refer to that in a minute, excuse me, we feel that we will be able to potentially reduce our overall plan liability, still giving them the options, and hopefully making this more of a reality. Everyone is in a financial different situation when they come to a point when they're making the decision to actually either opt a lump sum payout in their pension after they've become vested and reached the age 50 qualifier. So the monthly benefit may be better for them. The lump sum historically has not been a real good option for them. We typically, when we started out originally in the original bylaws, when we were formed at 100 times the monthly benefit amount, which was, I did some quick calculations here, which was $56,000. And then we, back in 2009, I believe, we came to our membership, and then we came to you as a council, and we increased that 100 times amount to 150 times. Again, we've had less than 1% of our total population select the lump sum. So now what we're doing is we've asked our membership, we've received approval, we're asking you to approve a $10,000 per year of service amount for a lump sum. So in our scenario, how our current bylaws are written, for every year of service, 10 years minimum, and then once the individual reaches age 50, they could now elect to take a lump sum in the amount of $10,000 per year of service, which would equate to $100,000, versus a $560 per monthly benefit. So just to put that in perspective, the break-even analysis on that is 14.88 years. So if someone starts drawing a monthly lump sum at age 50, he or she would have to live to just under age 65 to break even. So if we give them the option now at $100,000, that break-even point has been extended quite considerably. So it was 12 and a half years at the 150 times amount, and it was just under 8 years at the 100 times amount. So again, this is actually, if our assumptions hold true, and these are variables, so we have to make assumptions, we believe in one of the exhibits on the actuarial exhibit here, item D, we believe our total accrued liability will actually be reduced by $12,000. And the reason for that is that if an individual elects the lump sum versus the monthly benefit, if they were to take that, we are no longer encumbered by a potential automatic increase if they have over 15 years of service, an automatic cost of living adjustment that's currently in the bylaws, or if they should pass away, heaven forbid, a 2/3 spousal benefit. Those two costly things currently in our bylaws would actually be mitigated if they elected the lump sum. So that is really option or bylaw change number 1. Do you have any questions on that? Okay, without any questions, I'd like to go to bylaw number 2. And this is kind of going back to the next two bylaw changes are really, we didn't know what we didn't know until something happened. Unfortunately, we weren't dealing with anything major here, but the next two bylaw changes, and this number 2, deals with the definition of disability. So for an individual that had accrued at least 10 years minimum service and potentially went out on disability, was receiving a pension disability, once they reach age 50, we're asking you to approve that pension, disability pension, would then revert to a normal pension benefit. And the reason we're doing that is because what we found out through occurrence is that if we don't define it, it's vague, it's a gray area, so we want to define it for our members, and that potentially that payment could be offset with Social Security or potentially another disability provider. So we just want to change that to a normal, the benefit dollar amount doesn't change at all. So it's budget or asset neutral, okay? So that's what we're asking. We're just asking for a clarification in that specific section. Section 10, Section 4, or Article 10, Section 4, excuse me. Any questions on that? Okay. The final bylaw change that we're asking the council to consider is in Article 17, Section 1. And this deals, again, with something we hadn't dealt with before historically. And this deals with qualified domestic relations orders. And really what that is a scenario that occurs when two parties, one of our members, is in a divorce situation. And when there's an agreement between the two parties, how is the relief impacted by that agreement by the two parties? We've been very vague historically, and if you refer to the packet, we have said that a qualified domestic relations or domestic relations order shall be accepted by the plan administrator, the Relief Association, if in compliance with state and federal law. That's what we said. So now what we're asking you to consider is not only in compliance with state and federal law, because we have to follow the law, but also according to these bylaws. Because what we don't want to have happen is a scenario where there's a relationships order that is created, yet it's going to run afoul of what our member ultimately chooses in terms of his or her payout. So if a qualified domestic relationship order says that a spouse, an ex-spouse, is to receive 50% of their lump sum payout, what if the member elects a monthly benefit? It's unclear. So as long as our bylaws are defined specifically, the qualified domestic relation orders have to follow not only state and federal law, but also our bylaws. So what I've done, what we've done as a board and then as a membership is outlined Exhibit A, which really discusses trigger events and then payments to alternate payee. I'm not going to go through the 5, but you can see there the triggering events and then what happens in the alternate payee situation. Very common language in this type of scenario. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But other than that, if there are no questions, I would just encourage the council to approve the 3 proposed bylaw changes. And before I finish up, I would like to say thank you to the support of the city and the city council for the fire department, as well as our firefighters and the Relief Association. We very much appreciate your support that you've given our department and our members. And then also just quick, I can't miss in sharing this with you. As a business, today we are currently 96% funded in our pension. And that is a nice place to be, not only for our association, but also our taxpayers and our city council.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you so much for going through this. When you went through step by step, it made it much more clear than just reading it.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I think you made it pretty clear.
Me too.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Let's see, where is that motion? Let me get back to it. Okay, I would move to approve the three EPFFRA bylaw changes as unanimously recommended by the EPFFRA Board of Trustees and approved by the general membership of the EPFFRA.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Any other business? Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.